Hey guys, welcome to Denny's. Today we're going to be going over my complete ultimate Lepic farming and boss builds. More specifically, we will be taking a look at what I do to maximize my Lepic damage on bosses, while at the same time providing a build for farming if you ever need a fire descendant to farm with. This will kind of be an in-depth all-rounder for Lepic, so I'll be showing off the rotation gameplay loop as well as each build, so stay tuned. And before we get into the video, guys, remember to leave a like if I helped you in any way. Comment any feedback you have for me down below in the comment section. It means the most right now. And subscribe to me only if you feel like I have earned it. If not, next time I will. So keep up to date with the channel. And remember, guys, I am live on Twitch every single day. Come stop by, say hello. I absolutely love hanging out with each and every one of you guys and gaming. Don't forget also about the Denny's community Discord we launched. All links in the description down below. Now let's hop right into Lepic, or as I like to pronounce his name, Lepic. Don't forget to use timestamps and video chapters to your heart's content. But first things first, we're going to hop into the reactor of choice here. Now, I absolutely do not have the best in slot rolled reactor, but I do want to go over what I believe is the absolute best in slot for bossing first, and then we'll hop into the farming reactors. So for bossing, very importantly enough, we're going to want to go for an impact rounds and fire and tech reactor. This is very important for many reasons. Obviously, Lepic's overkill ability is tech and fire damage, so that's a no-brainer. But the reason we want an impact rounds reactor, guys, it's going to be the weapon in the weapon chapter of this video, so stay tuned for that. It's definitely a decent damage gain though. The rolls we're going to go for, however, on the reactor do not change. We are always going to want damage to Colossus and critical hit damage for bossing. This is the absolute best roll possible to give you the most damage per shot of your overkill ability while you are doing bosses, and this is a must-have. There is no arguing any other two stats on the reactor. This is how you do the most damage on Lepic while bossing. Now, to discuss some of the farming reactor rolls for Lepic, as far as the type, once again, we're going for tech and fire. This time I would actually recommend going for a special rounds mounted due to the fact that I believe the secret garden is going to be the go-to for the build. As far as my personal preferred secondary rolls, I'm going to go for range and critical hit damage. You'll notice the farming build we are using is just about 15% off maxing our range modifier for our grenade throw ability and our traction grenade. So that's going to max that out and add some nice damage with the critical hit damage as well. And then I would like to go over the external components that I'm currently using for the Lepic bossing build, and they won't really stray much from the farming build that I have just due to how everything works pretty well with each other. But first off, we're going to start with the auxiliary power. I'm currently utilizing the Slayer 4P set for Lepic. I think it is the best in slot as far as damage goes. You're going to want the full Slayer set. Now on the rolls for the aux power, we've got max HP here, followed by MP recovery out of combat. I just think this is a no-brainer. There's not really much else that you can do with the aux power. So that is what I recommend for the aux power. Now for the sensor, it is going to be a static roll of max shield on it. And then our secondary rolls are going to be max MP and MP recovery in combat. You don't really need MP recovery in combat. You can definitely go with something else, but you absolutely 100% need max MP. So I definitely recommend getting max MP on the sensor. That is probably one of the most important pieces of this entire build. Obviously, the more max MP you have, the more your enlightenment module on your build will, or anything will go play off that max MP, so you can get more shots in with your ultimate ability. And then for the Slayer memory, we've got the, again, max shield static roll, unfortunately, but still better than nothing, and especially defense. We've got the MP recovery modifier on here, importantly enough, and then the firearm proficiency gain is just what I happen to have roll on it. I was farming for these for a while before I got that gold MP recovery modifier, but nonetheless, a good Slayer memory there. And then lastly, the processor, I'm using the Slayer, once again, with max HP roll. Nice that we get that guaranteed max HP from it. But we've got the max shield and shield recovery modifier on there for bossing. And I do change that up for when I'm farming to a more of a farming roll with item acquisition distance and the equipment drop rate. But those are going to be the four components that I'm using for this build. And again, you know, I don't really swap them out a lot other than that processor for farming. And obviously you can change out the aux power for the additional Kuiper and the memory for the additional gold if you want additional gold, but more or less that is the components. Now to go over the weapon of choice for bossing first, any impact weapon will do. And this is actually due to a specific mod that scales just that tiny bit better with an impact round weapon over any general, heavy, or special round weapon. Of course, I am talking about the sharp precision shot. While Sharp Precision Shot fully enhanced increases your fire rate every 0.5 of a second normally, with the impact rounds version of the mod, it is increasing your fire rate every 0.4 of a second. So that may not sound like a lot, but let's do the math really quickly here. So if you're capped out at 10 stacks of this buff, it would normally take you 5 seconds to max out your rate of fire. So instead of 5 seconds, you are down to 4 seconds with the impact rounds, meaning that you are getting the peak fire rate 20% faster. So this will net you anywhere from 1 to 2 extra shots depending on your build, and every shot counts with this build, obviously. That could be 10 to 15 to 20% of your overall damage per shot, they do quite a bit when they crit, and they are nuking. So definitely very important to use that. I also forgot to mention, guys, do not forget to put the fire rate up on your weapon, the fire rate up mod by 25%. That is going to be paired with the Sharp Precision Shot. Those are the only 2 weapon mods worth using and that actually affect your ultimate ability on Lepic. And as far as the weapon for farming, guys, as I discussed earlier, I'm going to recommend the Secret Garden for this slot, and that is due to its unique ability, giving us 12% skill power stacked up to 3 times whenever we use a tech skill, and that lasts for 5 seconds. All of this at a base level with no unique ability upgrades as well. As far as the mods we use in the Secret Garden, it scales incredibly well with critical hit, as it has a base 50% crit rate, followed by insane base critical hit damage. So definitely go for a critical hit chance and damage, as well as fire rate and the classic firearm ATK. But we will mainly be holding this in our hands for more grenade throw damage, so no reason to really go too hard on the upgrading of this weapon other than the unique ability. And now to get into the bossing build. So this one is going to be tailored for solo burst and is a literal glass cannon, guys. As you can see here, we're going to start off with all of our mods that are going to increase our damage substantially and that scale with Lepic's base 20% crit chance very, very well. We are using all of the very important crit chance and crit damage mods due to this. We've got front lines, we've got emergency measures, skill insight, and skill concentration. And then as far as much base damage as we can go for, we're going to go for maximize power and fire specialist. And for that nice burst of additional damage when the boss is stunned or not targeting us, we've got dangerous ambush on top of that. Now, for some of the important quality of life mods that are going to help us get as many shots off as possible inside of our overkill window, we've got enlightenment, MP accelerant, and skill extension. This is giving us the extra duration and max MP to work with for those extra shots. I do want to note, guys, the sockets selected on this build are very modular, so if you're not a fan of the glass cannon feel or the long cooldown, you can absolutely insert your own mods for survivability and whatnot. This is how I prefer to go because I just love to see as much damage in a shortest time period as possible for Lepic's bossing build. Now, as far as the farming build, this is going to be focusing heavily on Lepic's grenade throw ability as well as his traction grenade ability. The goal here is to get as much range and damage as possible while also trying to obtain the shortest possible cooldown for the abilities. And of course, we never want to run out of MP, so starting things off with MP Collector. I truly don't believe you need regenerative braking for the Transcendent mod, as MP Collector is enough to make sure we are always good on MP as long as we are getting kills. Then we've got our 2 cooldown reduction mods in Nimble Fingers and MP Conversion, with the added cooldown from the Focus On mods for our damage hub output. We've obviously got Fire and Tech there, and the added 14% cooldown reduction they provide. Then we've got the Skill Concentration and Skill Insight, followed by Emergency Measures once again. These are just going to give us the extra damage we need to one-shot most packs of mobs when we are farming, with most crits hitting for around 500 to 800k with our grenade throw, depending on who you are fighting. And lastly, of course, we've gone for the additional range we need to nearly max out the range modifier with the skill expansion and maximize range mods. But again, they're rutile, so you can, again, these mods are extremely modular. If you guys want to mess around with them, this is just what I found to be the most enjoyable and kind of entertaining and fun build for farming for me in Lepic. Now, I am going to quickly cover the bossing gameplay loop, followed by the farming gameplay loop. Now, starting with the bossing, the main goal is going to be to get as many shots off as we can while bosses are stunned or close to stunned with our overkill ability. The rotation is as follows. We will be using our overclock ability before we are in combat to make sure that we will regain all of the MP back from the out of combat regeneration, using the skill before we then activate our overkill. When you are ready to do your damage phase, immediately animation cancel by rolling out of the overkill activation. As soon as you press your overkill, you can roll. And importantly, you're holding down your fire button to make sure that you are proccing the Sharp Precision Shot mod. If you do not hold down your fire button, you will not be proccing this mod and generating the additional fire rate. You will just be losing the 20% fire rate that it does to you without proccing it. After that, with the build I talked about in this setup, you're most likely done with whatever boss you were trying to kill. But if you're not, just run away like a little girl, do damage to the gun of your choice while your ultimate comes back off cooldown. Or you could just take advantage of game mechanics and die to respawn instantly, reset the cooldown of your ultimate, and go right back at it again if you absolutely need to. But that is the bossing gameplay loop. And then lastly, we're going to cover the farming gameplay loop. So for whatever mission or farm you are doing with Lepic's build, notably, it's going to be probably the Void Shard missions. And guys, check out my organic Void Shard video, as that build is just a bit different and goes into detail on a cheesy farming build. But if you are not running that specific mission, you'll want to do this setup in this gameplay loop. You're basically going to just be keeping your overclock on cooldown, followed by your traction grenade and grenade throw ability. The loop is as follows: overclock first, followed by throwing a traction grenade and watching the entire map get sucked into a black hole, and then finally tossing your grenade throw in the general vicinity of the center of the black hole and watching every mob die immediately. The good news is, if the pack doesn't die immediately, then your throw grenade cooldown will be up before you can probably say the words "Bob's your uncle." So that is nice. That is another nice part of this build, and it's kind of just an endless cycle repeating that loop over and over. It's extremely enjoyable, and you can pretty much grenade spam, and it feels really good. So that is the gameplay loop for the farming build. And then other than that, guys, that is pretty much been the video. I massively appreciate anyone who stayed this long. It helps me a ton, more than you guys know. I hope you guys enjoy Lepic as much as I do. He is pretty much my favorite Descendant in the game, and I have a really fun time playing with him. But anyways, guys, I hope you have a great rest of your day, night, morning, wherever you are, whatever time it is. But I am out of here. I appreciate you guys. Peace out. Goodbye.